Imagine being a heart surgeon for 30 years, holding countless human hearts in your hands, witnessing the delicate balance between life and death on a daily basis. For most of my career, I viewed everything through a scientific lens, dismissing anything beyond what could be measured. I even taught my students that when the brain stops getting oxygen, thoughts and feelings are nothing more than electrical impulses. But little did I know, I was about to experience something that would shatter that belief forever. On February 3rd, while speaking at a medical conference in Phoenix, I found myself on the other side of the operating table, facing a heart attack. And in those chilling moments, what I had always thought to be true about life, death, and the world beyond would be called into question in ways I could never have imagined. This is the story of what happened during those 17 minutes and 22 seconds when I was clinically dead, and what I learned that changed my view of everything. The medical team later told me that they were just about to give up when my heart suddenly started beating again. What I experienced during those precious minutes is something words can hardly capture, but I'll try to share it with you. The moment my heart stopped, I felt myself detach from my body, as though I was floating above it. I could see everything happening in the conference room. My colleagues frantically working to revive me, Dr. Sarah Williams shouting for epinephrine, and the cardiac monitor flatlining. But then, something extraordinary happened. The scene around me began to blur, and I found myself being pulled through what I can only describe as a tunnel of light. But tunnel doesn't even come close to doing it justice. The light was more than just brightness. It was alive, conscious, and filled with an overwhelming sense of love. The shift was instantaneous. One moment, I was gripped by excruciating pain, and the next, I was enveloped in a profound peace. This was when I met Jesus. Let me explain how it all unfolded. As I emerged from the tunnel, I found myself in what seemed to be a realm made entirely of light. Yet it wasn't blinding. Everything was sharp and clear, and my eyes felt no discomfort from the brilliance. It was then I heard his voice. Megan. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. When I turned around, there he was. And everything I thought I knew about his appearance was completely transformed. He spoke, and this is where my scientific background came into play. His voice was unlike any sound I had ever heard. It didn't just echo in my ears. It resonated through every fiber of my being. The tone wasn't particularly deep or high, but it carried an authority and love so pure, it defied description. When he spoke, I understood everything, far beyond words, beyond language itself. Megan, you've sought truth through science, which is good, he said, but now you will witness greater truths. Then he reached out and touched my forehead. As his hands rested on me, I saw the marks from his crucifixion. But these scars didn't look grotesque or painful. They glowed with a triumphant light, almost like badges of honor. In that instant, I experienced what I can only describe as full knowledge. I saw the entire process of creation. Not just the Big Bang, but all of existence woven together. Every scientific discovery linking into a bigger divine picture. I saw that every heart I'd ever worked on was designed with divine intelligence. But what happened next was even more astounding. Jesus took me through what appeared to be a window in time, showing me vivid scenes from his life on earth. The details were so rich, so real. I could smell the dust in the air, feel the warmth of the sun, and hear the subtle nuances of Aramaic and Greek being spoken. What amazed me most was that these were moments never recorded in history. I saw him preparing to teach in the early hours of the morning, comforting a child whose mother had died with such tenderness that my heart broke. I saw him with his disciples, sharing deeper truths about life, teaching them beyond what we can grasp in our world. But what struck me the most was how he healed people, not just physically, but on a level I had never imagined. After spending my life as a heart surgeon, I thought I knew what healing was, but Jesus' healing went far deeper. When he touched someone, their entire being changed, not because of a medical procedure, but because of the power of love. And then he shared with me the story of his crucifixion, not as a historical event, but as something he experienced from his own perspective. I thought I knew pain, but what I saw went beyond anything I could have fathomed. I witnessed not just the physical agony he endured, but the weight of the spiritual and emotional suffering of all humanity that he bore on his shoulders. Even in his greatest pain, his face radiated not only suffering, but an overwhelming love. What I saw, what I felt, shattered every notion I had ever held about life, death, and healing. And it opened my eyes to a truth that transcends science, an all-encompassing love that knows no bounds. His eyes never wavered from that remarkable blend of authority and compassion. Even as he hung on the cross, enduring unimaginable suffering, his focus remained on others, on the world he had come to save. Every detail of his life, every moment he chose to share, carried a weight that reshaped my understanding of history itself. He showed me 7 pivotal moments from his life, each one transforming the way I perceive not only his journey, but the very essence of humanity. First, he took me to the crucifixion. But what I saw wasn't just a historical event. It was a profound revelation from a medical perspective I had never expected. As a thoracic surgeon, I instantly recognized details that have never been mentioned in any historical text. I saw how the nails were driven through his wrists, not his palms, severing the median nerves. I understood how the weight of his body caused progressive asphyxiation, the slow, suffocating pressure building with each passing second. But what left me in awe was not just the physical agony he endured. It was being in his consciousness during that moment. His body was racked with unbearable pain, but his mind was focused on something far beyond his own suffering. I could feel how he absorbed not only the physical torment, but also the spiritual and emotional anguish of every soul that ever lived. It was as if he were a cosmic sponge, soaking up an ocean of darkness and pain. But the story didn't end with the crucifixion. Next, he showed me moments from his life that I had never imagined, beginning with a private conversation between him and his mother Mary when he was just 12 years old. They were on their rooftop in Nazareth, speaking in Aramaic, and I somehow understood every word. He was telling her that he was beginning to realize how special he was, and I could feel her wonder and worry as a mother, knowing her son was destined for something greater. The second moment he showed me took place early in his ministry, before any of his miracles were recorded. He met a family whose young son was dying of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. But instead of healing the child immediately, he spent 3 days with the family, teaching them the deeper meaning of suffering and divine love. When he finally healed the boy, it wasn't just a physical cure. The entire family was transformed. The third moment was particularly moving. It was the night before his crucifixion, hours before he would pray in Gethsemane. He was alone on the Mount of Olives, in complete communion with the fullness of human history, It was as if he were already connected to every life that had ever been or would ever be. At the same time, he showed me how his ultimate sacrifice would resonate with each soul across all time. But his teachings didn't stop with historical events. He also took me to realms beyond the earth, heaven, hell, and even the presence of God the Father. What I saw in hell was unlike anything I had ever imagined. I had witnessed pain in many forms, but this place wasn't one of fiery torment as many have described. Instead, it was a state of complete separation from divine love and truth. I saw souls who had built their own prisons, trapped by decisions and beliefs that kept them from knowing God. Their suffering wasn't imposed on them. It was a natural consequence of being cut off from the source of all goodness. As a doctor, I saw how their pain was self-perpetuating, much like the way the body attacks itself in an autoimmune disease. But then, he showed me heaven. And heaven wasn't a place filled with clouds and harps, as we often imagine. It was beyond that, an experience of pure, infinite love and understanding. Think of the deepest, most profound peace and joy you've ever felt. Then multiply that by infinity. That's the closest I can come to describing it. In that moment, I realized that every scientific discovery I had ever made was just a tiny glimpse of something far greater. The physical laws we study, gravity, light, quantum mechanics, are merely shadows of a deeper divine reality. Jesus then led me into what I can only describe as the very center of all existence. There was a presence there, both overwhelming and somehow deeply familiar. Imagine if perfect truth, infinite wisdom, and boundless love could speak. They would sound like this presence. What amazed me the most was that this supreme being, the source of everything, was focused on each individual soul, as if it were the only one in existence. Every prayer, every tear, every moment of joy, this divine consciousness was fully aware of it all, as if it were holding each moment in perfect balance. And then came the realization that completely changed the way I view science. All physical reality, including time and space, originates from this divine consciousness. Just as thoughts arise from the mind, so too does everything we see and experience flow from a greater, more profound truth. In that moment of realization, I truly saw how science and spirituality are intertwined, each revealing a piece of a larger, more magnificent puzzle. The intersection of these two realms isn't just theoretical. It's an undeniable reality that has shaped my understanding of existence itself. It's as though the physical world we study is only a shadow of a deeper, more divine truth that transcends human comprehension. Many people are fascinated by how I describe Jesus' appearance, but for me, it wasn't his physical form that left the most lasting impression. It was his presence. It was his essence, his overwhelming love and compassion that reshaped everything I thought I knew about life, the universe, and the divine. What I encountered was not just a figure, but the very heart of existence itself. As a surgeon, I've been trained to observe with precision, to write down every detail with care. So when I saw Jesus, I didn't just glimpse a figure in the distance. I studied him closely. He wasn't like the traditional depictions I had seen in art, yet his form was undeniable in its authenticity. He stood before me with a presence that filled the entire room. His height was unremarkable, yet he exuded a power that made the space seem small in comparison. His build was athletic, though not imposing, like someone who had worked as a carpenter and walked the earth with purpose. His skin was a light olive, the color of modern Middle Eastern people, kissed by the sun. It radiated from within, glowing with a warmth that wasn't pale or white like the European depictions, but more like the golden hue of sun-warmed honey, alive with light. But it was his hair that struck me most profoundly. It wasn't the dark brown or black we often see in paintings, nor was it the pale blonde of some European renderings. His hair shimmered in the light, flowing in soft waves down to just above his shoulders. And the light. It moved through everything, casting incredible colors from honey gold to deeper amber, alive and changing with every shift in the light. His features were flawlessly balanced, defying the odds of genetic probability. His forehead was noble and proportionate, with expressive eyebrows that spoke volumes. His nose was straight and perfectly formed, fitting his face like a masterful work of art. Yet it was his eyes, those incredible eyes, that left the deepest mark on me. They shifted between a warm brown and a penetrating blue, depending on how the light caught them. They were more than eyes. They were like precious stones, amber, sapphire. Yet even these words don't do them justice. When he looked at me, I felt as if he saw into the very depths of my soul, understanding everything, every flaw, every victory, every fear. And yet, there was no judgment, only boundless love and compassion that brought me to my knees. His beard, perfectly groomed, framed his face with a softness that made him seem approachable yet powerful. When he smiled, the whole universe seemed to brighten, and I understood, in that moment, the depth of his love. In all my years as a doctor, I've studied faces with great detail, but nothing prepared me for the depth of expression in his. There was a balance of authority and tenderness that felt both humbling and comforting. His gaze made you feel as though he knew you completely, yet still embraced you with an understanding so pure it felt like healing itself. His presence was regal, yet not aloof. He moved with a grace that seemed to transcend the limits of the physical world. Every movement was purposeful, beautiful, and natural. His robe, simple yet spotless, seemed to shimmer with a life of its own. It wasn't made of any fabric I could recognize, but it flowed like living light. The colors shifted between deep blue and purple, hues that I'd never seen on Earth, but that resonated with the very core of my being. As he looked into my eyes, he spoke words that would forever change me. Tell them that I am more real than their doubt, more present than their fear, and more loving than their shame. And with that smile, everything became clear. I understood why I had become a surgeon, why I had lived the life I did, and even why I had to face that heart attack. He also taught me something profound about time. What we perceive as linear time, he showed me, is part of a greater, eternal reality. Every prayer, every tear, every joy exists in what he called the eternal now, a present moment that stretches beyond what we can comprehend. He told me it wasn't my time yet, reminding me that I had been a healer of hearts in the physical realm. With his blessing, I felt myself being pulled back through the tunnel of light, and the next thing I knew, I was gasping for air on the conference room floor, surrounded by shocked co-workers. Dr. Chen was there, tears streaming down his face, and the cardiac monitor displayed a perfect rhythm, better than my usual baseline. It was as if my heart had been renewed, not just physically, but in every possible way. This experience, however, didn't just mark a moment of personal transformation. It launched a new chapter in my life. I've come out of retirement to establish a research institute dedicated to studying near-death experiences, using the latest neuroimaging technologies and theories from quantum physics to better understand these profound phenomena. What's particularly fascinating is that when we gather testimonies from people across different cultures, times, and places about their encounters with Jesus, they consistently describe him in ways that align with my own experience. His light brown hair, his shifting eyes, and his unique skin tone appear again and again in these stories, details that defy artistic convention, but which hold a universal truth. As a former skeptic, I can deeply empathize with doubt, but I would urge others to consider this. The specifics of what I experienced, his appearance, the quality of light, the nature of consciousness beyond the body, are not vague, mystical impressions. They are precise, scientific observations made by someone who has spent decades training to notice the smallest details. The consistency across cultures and experiences should be of great interest to anyone who takes research seriously. Nothing has changed, and yet everything has changed. I still approach life with a critical mind, still a surgeon, but with a new understanding. What I've come to realize is that the physical world is just a surface, a layer of something much deeper. I've begun writing down every detail of my experience, hoping to help scientists better understand near-death experiences. I've also been working with artists who have had similar encounters, so we can create more accurate representations of Jesus based on what we've seen together. But the most profound change is within me. If you've had a similar experience but feel hesitant to share it, know that you're not alone. As a doctor, I can now say with certainty, consciousness transcending physical death is not only possible, but it's our natural state. And for those who haven't had such an experience, I can assure you that the Jesus I met, the one with his light brown hair, eyes that shimmered between amber and blue, his perfect proportions, and his overwhelming love, is more real than anything in this physical world. He knows every detail of your life, every struggle, and he loves you with a completeness beyond human understanding. Thank you for your listening.